Hi, I'm Tim. Join me in this video as we unbox, assemble, and test fly the A300 Beech 17 scale RC model aircraft. Let's get to it.
Nice landing.
The Beech Staggerwing was really America's first business aircraft, first flown in 1932. Each aircraft was essentially hand-built, very nice interiors, leather, woodwork. The plane was a big airplane, had a range of engines from 220 horsepower to 710 horsepower. About 780 were built, and many were used in the military during World War II for transport duties. This is a takeoff of a Beech Staggerwing. You can see that it uses a lot of runway. It's a big airplane. It's a heavy airplane. And that's captured a little bit with the model. It's just a workhorse airplane. A nice look here at the finished kit of the Beech 17S Staggerwing. Very nice airplane. And there it is, held up, ready for its first flight. So let's do the unboxing of the Beechcraft D-17S, the A300 kit. And I always like to kind of look at a box, get a first impression. I like this box a lot. Got a little handle here. Section of a blueprint is kind of cute. Nice presentation of the Beech Staggerwing. I think this would be a nice little kit. So let's take a look at the side panel, just some top level things, 550 millimeters. That's about 21.5-inch wingspan. So it'll be a nice size bottle. It's a brushless bottle. This implies a 2-volt battery, 7.4 volts. Yep, 2S right here. And you see things like description of receiver socket. I have no earthly idea what that means. We'll figure it out once we get to the directions. So that's the box right now. Let's go ahead and take a moment to actually unbox it. So we'll do the unboxing now. I'm looking at this for the first time, so journey with me. I'll lift up the top, this side, and that's what we see when we first look at it. So here is a wing, probably the top wing with the antennas there. Here is another wing with the various electrical connections. You can see the ailerons on this side. The servos are installed. This will be a battery hatch, I'm sure. Nice that the servos are connected, everything hinged, everything looks good and slots for the landing gear. This is a pretty substantial 2-amp battery. It is 600 milliamps with the 2 cells there, with a balance plug, JST connection. This balance plug means I can charge it with a conventional charger for the safety with the 2 cells. That's a good thing. And they have a second battery, which is a good thing as well. So you have 2 batteries with you. Some foam packing, very nice propeller. You can see with the constant speed mechanism molded into the plastic. That's a very nice touch. Some more packing, and then odds and ends. Looks like a USB charger. Landing gear with the gear covers. Some of the strut arrangements, very nice. Should add to the character of the model. The rudder and fin. And the horizontal stabilizer and elevator with the horns all installed. That looks good. Some more bits and pieces, the interplane struts, a screwdriver to put everything together, and some mounting screws right there. All very nice. So finally, we have the fuselage. And it's nice. We've got a clear canopy, which is nice. 2 little pilots did actually a pretty good job of painting them in with their controls. You can see a little representation of the cockpit instruments, which is a nice touch. The rear seats. And the wing will all mount here. It looks like some lights are installed. The rudder, the elevator, everything looks in pretty good shape. Here are the 2 little servos mounted on the receiver board. the plugs for the various components, ailerons and so forth, the electronic speed controller, the battery will plug in here, 3 wires that connect to the motor. The motor's all installed. You can see that nice little brushless motor in there. And with the little spinner, the screw to hold it on, even the decal for the constant speed prop. Very nice, very nice. So I think this is going to be a good little model. This might be a good addition. The 4-channel transmitter. So again, 2.4 gigahertz. So there's no worry about deconfliction, and the trim tabs. Looks like a pretty nice little transmitter. So that's where we are for now. The unboxing is complete. We'll send you the directions, assemble it, and then test fly it. Here's another look at all the components out of the box. The fuselage is assembled with all the push rods, bottom wing, top wing, tail control surfaces, transmitter, and a pretty nice instruction manual. The instruction manual, you got to kind of work through the words, but there's very good diagrams in there. The diagrams track exactly what you're doing on the model for things like putting in struts and so forth. Just study the pictures, it'll help out. A good example of the tail, there are 2 sets of screws. They list them right here, 1.7 and a 1.5. And I like to lay those out, so I just basically consider it the long screw and the short screw. We'll start with the top wing. That's what the directions have. There are 3 holes that go into mounting plugs on the top of the fuselage. You can see the plugs here, 2 in the clear plastic, 1 in the fuselage. That's what the screws screw into. The wing is in place. You notice the wing droops a little bit. Everything will line up when you add in the interplane struts. Here's another view of the electronics. You can see the 2 aileron leads and then the power board there. That's where the plugs go for the lights, for the exterior lights. And there are the wires for the wing, 2 for the ailerons, 2 for the lights. Another view of that power board. Everything's connected with the ailerons. Going to connect the power lights next. And you want to make sure everything works before you screw in that bottom wing, because you do not have access to the electronics once that's in place. The wing is screwed in place. That's where the battery goes. That's the battery connector with the JST connector. The interplane struts are in place. Those are screwed in place. The cabling or the wire bracing between the wings is kind of a flexible plastic. Just study the picture on how that goes in. You see there's a little bit of a shorter end. It just plugs and friction fit holes into place. Here the completed airplane is with the wings and the cabling. The landing gear is all assembled with the gear doors. You simply slide in the wire into the slot in the wing. There's really nothing to that at all. And it's a good, strong arrangement for the gear. There's the 2 main gear in place. And the tail wheel just goes into a slot on the back. It is not a steerable tail wheel. And here is the finished model. It looks pretty good. You can see the lights are on, the wing lights, the one on top of the fuselage, all set for a test flight. As you can see from the previous video, we took several steps to assemble this A300 Beech 17 aircraft. It really is a remarkable model, I think. First of all, it weighs 8.4 ounces, so it's under the maximum weight of about 8.8 ounces, 250 grams to register in remote ID, so you don't have to worry about that. It took me a little over an hour to put it together. The instructions are a little bit complicated with the wording. However, the pictures are very clear on how to put everything together. Probably the biggest or the initial challenge was connecting the wires. Just remember that your servo wires have 3 wires. There's typically a red and a black for the power, then a yellow, white, lighter colored one for the signal for it, as those just connect to the ones from the airplane. And then the 2 2-wire connectors with a black and red wire, those are for the lights in the wings and the fuselage. Those go into this little power panel that you plug those in. It's important to make sure that those are plugged in, all the controls are working correctly before you assemble the wing. The wing is held on by very small screws. They are not removed between flights, so once this fuselage is sealed up, you really can't see anything of the interior. And this is a battery hatch that is just for the battery itself, so just make sure that's all set before you start assembling it. The wings screw into place. They fit in very nicely. There's plastic reinforcing posts to do that. The motor's all installed. these strut wires between the K-bind struts are just kind of a flexible plastic that fit into place. It works very well. Again, observe the picture how to do that. The tiny servos for the ailerons are just mounted flat in place. The other two servos for the elevator and rudder are already mounted in the fuselage on the receiver. The landing gear just slots into place. There's nothing you have to worry about there. And overall, just a very pleasant model to build. And I think it'll fly okay. Typically, these small models, this is pretty heavy for the size of the model. We have a 2-cell battery. We have a brushless motor. I know we're going to have plenty of power. And then what happens, we have the gyro stabilization system that works in the background to provide smooth flight. Let's take a look at that while I plug in the battery and we see how the flight controls work. So we plugged in the battery, the very nice transmitter here. You can see the lights on the wingtips, the light back here. I think they look nice. If nothing else, you can tell the model is powered up. We're taking a look at the elevators, and that is up, down, and then the rudder, left, right. If we take a look at the ailerons, lower wing only, and that should be plenty of throw. And then what happens for the motor to arm it, we have to take this and move it up, down, and now the motor works. That's a very smooth motor. And then what happens is once the motor is working, that's where the gyro stabilization comes in. And watch what happens. It's in the gyro mode now. You see when it goes nose up, these ailerons, rudder and ailerons are constantly moving to try to right the model to have it fly in the correct manner. This all works in the background. There's nothing you do with it on the controllers, but it should make for a very smooth flying model. So if you hear that chattering before you take off, everything is okay with that. So I think we're in good shape. One other thing is center of gravity. With these ready-to-fly models, they don't put a lot of emphasis on the center of gravity. You should be thinking about it. The center of gravity is typically 25% back from the leading edge. Where you have a staggered wing, what you do for the width of the wing, you take the leading edge of the bottom one to the trailing edge here, 25% of that distance, and you can see that it comes out at about the correct point here with the top wing. So I'm going to consider this okay for balancing. So I think we're all set. We just have to wait for a good day, head out to the flying field, and we'll take it for a test flight. So out here at the flying field, it looks like a perfect day for a test flight of the Beech Staggerwing. So everything looks okay. What we'll do is we'll go ahead and put in the battery, get everything set up, and yes, it is correct that the registration up here is put in upside down. So I'll bring that up to the manufacturers. It should be the other way around on that. So like it is here. So we'll give it a shot. Wish me luck. Okay, so we've done the control check and the motor works, as you can see. I just want to point out that when the gyros are working, as I tilt it, you see with the nose down, the gyros put the elevator up. That is just an indication that the gyros are working both for the ailerons and the elevator, which the gyros are the key to flying this thing. Off we go with the first flight, full power into the wind, and we're up and away. The plane has plenty of power, it climbs out, and you'll see a thing that I had to kind of make sure I understood. A little bit of adverse yaw was turning. You've got to make sure that you add rudder into the turn to keep that nose coming around. Very characteristic of a biplane like this. But it had plenty of power, just feeling it out, circling around, doing some right-hand turns here. And now we're going to come in for our first landing, and with the mistake, I just got a little bit slow. It dropped in. Ron's going to take it up for the second flight. That's full power, takeoff there. I think that little dip in the wing is the gyros are just kicking in and just kind of feeling out how that works. Ron has it up at altitude. Again, he's feeling it out. And you can see as Ron's flying, it's hunting a little bit in altitude. I think that might be part of the gyros working in, and there might be some deadband with the centering of the sticks on this transmitter that with a full regular transmitter might not be there. Ron's coming in for a landing, nice and fast. You do have to fly this on. It just takes a little bit of time to experiment for the landing. I'll go ahead and try it one more time for this third flight here. Again, the gyros are kicking in, I think, on the takeoff. We get up. Remember to add a little bit of rudder for the coordinated turn for the adverse yaw. Coming around much better and circling around, and we'll come in for a landing. And again, I get a little bit slow at the end and I kind of dropped it in.
Nice landing.
So we're back from the RC field, and this is the Staggerwing that we took for a couple of test flights. Ron helped out, and it's a beautiful airplane. I like the kit a lot. I think the model flew pretty much as designed. You saw in the takeoff, it's got plenty of power with this relatively tiny prop. Took off very expeditiously. The landing gear held up fine. The gyros are absolutely crucial for this airplane to fly properly, as the gyros work in the background to smooth out the bumps as it flies along. I try to keep in mind when I fly these airplanes that very often models will mimic the flight characteristics of what they were scaled after. This was truly, in 1932, what we would nickname a heavy metal airplane at the time. It was a big airplane, a huge motor in front, and it had certain flight characteristics that were common of the era that were picked up in this model. And specifically, there's a little bit of adverse yaw. And what that means is when you turn one direction, because of the drag of this down elevator, the nose can sometimes go a little bit to the opposite direction of the turn. You have to add the rudder for the turn. I was doing that during the flights. That helped out a lot. There were a few times it looked like it was hunting a little bit in pitch. I think experimenting with the gyro settings, you could do that on the transmitter, and it was fairly windy at altitude for this flight along. I think that might have had something to do. But I think this is a good airplane. The battery should provide plenty of flight time. It handles well, and it's worth your time to experiment with the gyro settings a little bit to get the best flying that's set for you, but overall an enjoyable flying experience. On the date of the flight, I got the Aircraft for Sale magazine. If you want to buy your own Beech Staggerwing, here it is. And we'll take a look at it. A mere $275,000.